Hello and welcome to the Digital Digest, your weekly breakfast of insights, tips and tricks, and general information that will help anyone trying to move things forward in this digital world of accounting. This show is sponsored by Free Agent, probably the friendliest accounting software, not to be confused with Carlsberg, probably the friendliest, probably the best beer. And it's also brought to you by both the Digital Disruptors and SB Digital, which are pushing the boundaries in this digital accounting space. I'm your host, Ryan Piercy, and this episode is dedicated to recognising those digital disruptors as, nominated by you, the people. I'm lucky enough to be joined by Trent Mclaren, a veteran in this space, to talk a bit about his journey and his setup of his new business journey. So let's crack on. I'd love to know, Trent, a little bit about you. Let's talk to listeners a little bit about your experience and your history in this tech space.
Thank you, Ryan. Thanks for the intro. We have a rule at Journey. When you use Journey in a pun, you kind of have to drink whatever's in your hand at that time. And if that...
I've only got water.
Yeah, just but really quickly, like it's a shot. So we that happens at least 2 to 3 times a day, surprisingly, both from us and from clients. We say we're all on the journey together. My background, I've been in accounting tech for since 2012 or so. My first job was hitting the phones, making lots of phone calls to accountants and bookkeepers to help them set up online payments on their invoices using Xero. If I fast forward to today, I've had every job under the sun in sales, marketing, partnerships, and all things that you do in SaaS. So fast tech startups. Managed to work for Intuit QuickBooks at one point as well. So I got to do the corporate life side of things. And then most people remember me from my time at Ignition. When I lived in London, I was working with Ignition and had a very good time doing that when I was living there. And then 12 months ago, we started Journey, which was a combination of my journey. So my last 10 years, my business journey, and then helping other SaaS providers to help scale and grow on their journey. So there was a lot of different ways that we were slicing the word journey into what we do. As we've worked through it, we also figure out buyer journey, customer journey. Like there's so many different other areas that has evolved from that exist in sales, marketing, partnerships. So that's me in a nutshell. I'm an accounting tech guy. I somehow won an award. I was the Accounting Thought Leader of the Year in 2017.
Wow.
When here in Australia. And the running joke on that was that I'd only been working in the accounting industry for about 3 or 4 years as a sales rep, and I, had never lodged a tax return and somehow won this award. So that was the running joke that made it all pretty funny.
Yeah, and I understand that you've also been involved in, this podcast space with a huge show over in Australia. Can you talk a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, I can. So I am also the CEO of From the Trenches, which is a media business that launched on the back of a podcast. The style of the podcast was two basically angry accountants that were championing the sole practitioner accounting firm. And they would just get on almost like it was we call it the footy show, I think similar for the football fanatics, but it was the footy show for accounting. And they would get on and do their 5 best on grounds, worst on grounds, and they would just tear shreds off anyone in sales, marketing, software companies. And luckily I've been both best and worst on ground at different times on that show before I became involved. And then even during, they're like, our CEO Trent's really stuffed up this week, and they'd throw me under the bus. So that podcast definitely before all the accounting podcasts popped up sort of 7 or 8 years ago, was well listened and digested. They're getting anywhere from 1,200 to 2,000 odd downloads per episode, and then they've done hundreds. So you go back through all the data, and there's literally people coming up saying, "Oh, I loved what you said last week," or I get texts from people saying, "Oh, did you hear Dave really tear shreds off you this week?" And I said, "Yeah, I had to edit the episode. Obviously, I heard what he said."
Yeah, I mean, they were definitely pioneers in this space. And if anyone's ever thought I'm grumpy on the Digitals and the Cruel World podcast, they'd need to listen to Paul Meisner From the Trenches. He takes it to a whole new level.
He does. And he comes from a really caring place. A lot of people don't know and sometimes misunderstand Paul, I think. But he champions what micro practitioners are and what they look like, and he's only ever doing this for his own benefit. Sometimes that comes across as they think he doesn't like tech and all those sorts of things. He was one of the first practitioners using Xero here in Australia back in the day. He used to sit down with the Xero tech and product teams and help them, watch them code new things into product back at XeroCon when only 100 people would turn up to a XeroCon here in Australia. So he's been around a long time and really helping. But I think at the same time, you've got to have sometimes villains and champions and heroes and things like that.
Definitely.
Sometimes he gets painted with a villain's brush. But I think misunderstood. I think Paul's a fantastic person that a lot of people would happily have a beer with if they met him in real life.
I think he also enjoys it a bit, to be fair.
He loves it. Yeah, right.
He does, yeah. So, look, you've been nominated as a digital disruptor by the public on LinkedIn. And I guess, one of the questions I always ask those that come on the show is, what do you think it is to be a digital disruptor, and why do you think that you may have been nominated?
Firstly, thank you for thank you, Mum, for nominating me for this. I really appreciate it. For me, when I think through these with accolades and nominations and so forth, there's an element of someone thinks you're doing something that's pushing the agenda and the conversation forward. And I think that's really important so that we understand how are we helping each other to better ourselves and the knowledge and whatever else. It's two parts. You're doing something that people think is innovative and pushing everyone forward. And two, it's being willing to share and help others to do the same thing. We do a lot of that at Journey. We have a lot of conversations with people trying to help them, whether it's in accounting, whether it's in tech, whether it's it could be process improvements. At the end of the day, I think the trap we fall into is people think buying tech helps us to do our work better. Tech enables us to do different things, but there's a whole bunch of process that has to adapt and change with that. You don't just buy things out of a box and hope that it all goes to plan. So, I think for me, it's you're either doing something really cool that people are paying attention of and learning from, and then two, I think your willingness to share that and help others come on the journey with you. I've got nothing to drink.
You find a shot,
is part of that process. So, I think that they're my two pieces.
No, definitely. And I think that we've talked a lot about what you have been through and what you've now set up. But look, you set up Journey about a year ago. And my understanding is that's to support, I guess, the tech community, not necessarily accountants, maybe accountants, but mostly, the software vendors. Can you just talk a little bit about what, I guess, Journey does, and then, why set it up a year ago?
Yeah. So why set up? What do we do? I'll start there, and I think I always start with the problem. What's the problem we're trying to solve, and why do people come to us every week and every month? It feels at the moment to help them with an element of their business. So the problem for most SaaS companies in the accounting tech space is that they don't understand accounting. So they've accidentally stumbled upon the fact that accounting firms like their product, but they don't know accounting. They didn't start an accounting firm. Like me, they probably never lodged a tax return or sat down to give any advice to someone on how to run a practice or have a good client conversation. We are a hybrid or a chameleon of a few things. We understand the accounting tech industry. We had Jordan Vickery join us as our he's a global director, but helps manage our Europe, Middle East part of the business. We're a team of people that understand the accounting industry so intently that we would help execute and accelerate your growth in the accounting channel easily by 6 to 12 months. There's brands that we work with that will literally say, hey, like what you've done in a week would have taken us 6 months worth of research and work, because we've already been there and done that. We've spent 10 years working in this audience, building those partnerships, working with those industry bodies. If I've got £20,000 that I need to spend next week to get in front of 1,000 people, or £500, or we know where to spend it. A lot of new brands coming to this market have no idea. So what started 12 months ago, I was actually made redundant in a role that I was in. And I didn't want to get another job. I'd been working in this space for so long that when you're on my side of the fence as a software vendor, you can get trapped jumping and bouncing between different vendors, and we can't always help that. I know some people that would not do that if they couldn't, but it's just the way that it kind of unfolds on them. So like a few people that I've noticed of late have done similar. I decided I wanted to go and do my own thing. Never done that before. Never been a business owner before like that. I went and started speaking to a few different brands and said, hey, I'm coming onto market. The first 2 or 3 I spoke to said, well, we'd take you full time. And I was like, well, yeah, I don't want to do that. I'm feeling pretty burnt out. Started consulting, and consulting turned into execution. So the biggest challenge isn't telling a vendor what they're doing wrong. It's actually helping them to execute and get it done right. There's plenty of people out there that want to tell people how to get stuff done. There wasn't a lineup of people saying, hey, we'll actually roll up our sleeves and do the work. So our business exploded pretty quickly because we were able to both come in and say, hey, I can see what's wrong, and B, we'll do it for you. And we've grown our business being almost a fractional team or a go-to-market team as a service. So rather than trying to deal with a myriad of freelancers or trying to find that full-time hire that doesn't understand the accounting channel, you come to Journey and you work with us for a however period of time to help get that project done and moving in the right direction.
Yeah, and so you hinted at how big you've grown. How many people are part of the Journey team
now? About 17 to 18 people today. So what went from me being by myself in January last year quickly turned into 2 to 3 people. We brought in a brand creative person. We brought in a systems implementation person. And then as we were adding clients, we're adding sort of 1 to 2 clients a month. We added a team member or so each month, and we scaled really quickly. In our first, and then not to mention open the UK team, and then there's now 4 or 5 in that UK team as well. We generated well over 7 figures in our first year. We spent a lot of money at the same time trying to figure that out because it's very labor intensive. I don't want to paint a fairy tale. Like, we're not millionaires in that sense. We made lots of money and we spent a lot of money trying to figure out what our model is and how that should work. But I think
it sounds like you spend a lot of money on alcohol as well as the amount of puns and shots you have to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's part of the problem. So we've all gone dry 2024 if we can to recoup our margin. But I think this speaks to our mindset of being wanting to be able to innovate and push forward. We didn't want to just be an agency. I didn't work in an agency before. I actually don't like agencies. They like doing one thing on repeat. And they want to do as very little as they can for the fee that they want to charge. And I'm coming from environments where we used to, we're working our ass off 40, 50, 60 hours a week to see this thing grow and scale. That's the SaaS environment a lot of our team have come from. What we struggle with ultimately is actually over-servicing a lot of the time because we don't know where to stop because we just want to keep going. Like, that's a great idea. We could do that. So they're part of the challenges that we face. I think that everyone faces, not too different to accounting firms trying to do the right by their client. We also want to do the same thing. Yeah,
definitely. I can I guess say how good you guys are because you've helped us in our journey. From inception to service, market, product. You've kind of helped us shape that. So I think it's been we've experienced it.
My fun fact this week was someone sent me a link to a website and they said, hey, we're looking at all of our partnerships and we came across these guys and they sent me the Digital Disruptors website link. They said, do you know these guys? And I was like,
yeah, idiots.
More than you know.
Don't touch them.
I was like, nice people, great website, nice people. So that was pretty funny. I enjoyed that. But that's also a good example. Like, we get calls all the time on who should we partner with? Do you know these people? Of the 4 people he sent me, and they were, UK, America, Oz. I was like, yeah, actually, I know all 3. Let me just send a quick LinkedIn message off. And that comes from years of conferences and traveling and, to your point, lots of shots and champagne at pre-conference parties, getting to know everyone. So, there's a lot of time invested building up a lot of rapport with a lot of people. And that now becomes part of our service, is trying to help people navigate through that quickly. So.
Yeah, and you were known, Trent, for the ignition parties, so you have a reputation there. But I guess that helps, if you're there's so much money that is thrown at that by software vendors. You can probably advise also in that space of what brings value. What is just you throwing money away and what helps value. But look, this is a tech show, so it'd be wrong of us not to talk about tech. And you've scaled insanely, probably in the same way you could argue a tech company does. At some point, maybe you'll get some sort of unicorn status, not sure. But how has your internal tech stack changed over that year?
It's a good question. And to be fair, when we were doing the scaling, my mindset was tech company, because that's all I knew. I've had to adapt and adjust that because we don't have a tech product. We have people that, go on holidays and get sick and have good days and bad days. And that can, and they're things that are normal. Like, you shouldn't expect anything other than that. But that also then impacts our ability to deliver service in some ways. So our tech stack, I think, is a little bit more settled now, but obviously implementing things like workflow and task management, trying to get repeatable processes in place was key. Having people in place to help manage some of those functions. So again, I didn't come from an agency background, so we actually sourced someone that implements workflow and became our ops team manager for quite a long time. I think once we got to the end of that first year and we looked at all the capacity and resources, it's then just trying to determine what do we need to do that helps our client move the needle and making sure we've got the right capacity for there. We do leverage a hell of a lot of AI at the moment. ChatGPT paid, so GPT-4 or 5 or whatever they're up to. We use quite a lot, not just for necessarily copywriting, but we use it to synthesize a lot of data at the moment. We went hard at customer research last year. So we're using tools like Tally for building surveys, really nice, easy, similar to Typeform, except it's free and has all the same features and things. Feeding all that raw data then into things like ChatGPT to synthesize it to then help sales, marketing, product teams get better marketing positioning, messaging, sales pitches, the works. I'm using it 2 to 3 times per day. We've got offshore teams that we level up on it now as well. So, if you look at people's ability to craft and create and get ideas, and you'd rank some of them at 3 out of 10, 4 out of 10, I find our use of AI actually helps level people up to like 7 and 8 out of 10 more consistently and giving them better outputs on the other side. I wouldn't say our tech stack's too fancy otherwise, like Slack, Asana, ChatGPT. We use things like Fireflies, like AI note-taking stuff, and then we'll synthesize that through, AI and ChatGPT as well. But yeah, I don't think it's too innovative, but maybe it's because I'm used to it as well. My fun probably story, actually, we did a bit of work with an accounting firm recently where they weren't using a lot of AI. They'd meet with a client. They would then go and write up all their notes post the meeting. They might do 2-3 meetings a day where they sit down with the client doing that. The quick thing we've helped them implement is Fireflies for in the office. So using their phone or an iPad to capture all those conversations to then synthesize and generate hey, here's our advice and our conversation. Here's your tax plan and whatever that might look like. Already saving them hours per week. But the other fun one that they hadn't comprehended was translating. So they get quite a few clients that are of Chinese descent or Greek or whatever it may be, quite different in Australia compared to maybe over in the UK. They have grandkids that come in to translate what's being said between the accountant and the parent. And the grandkid will come in and just try to delegate between the two. But now what they're actually able to do is record all the notes in Fireflies, feed it into ChatGPT for the advice, and then translate that into their language and be able to send both the English version and the translated version. And I love the accessibility of this. I think this is something that most firms haven't comprehended, is how do I meet my clients with empathy at their level in things that they can understand? Because coming into something where I don't understand it, it's maybe not my natural language, was really, really cool, really, really powerful. So that was one thing I thought was pretty awesome of late.
No, to be honest, I think how much you're using AI must be a differentiator for you in the market, because I think a lot of businesses out there, they know they should be doing something, they have no idea where to start, and it can be quite overwhelming, and especially in the accounting sector where, we're quite heavy on Microsoft and probably waiting for Copilot to not be extortionate before we start rolling this stuff out. But you've talked a lot about tech, you've talked a lot about your growth, but it'd be really good if we can get maybe a recommendation or a couple of recommendations on any business that wants to go through this scaling. What are the things that they should be aware of that you've learned over this last year that they, could be a takeaway for them?
We wrote a lot of highs last year. Like, it was mostly like a really, really positive trajectory all the way through. I think any business owner will tell you that things suck at certain times, not for things out of your control compared to when you've been an employee and everything else. It sounds really cliche. I used to hear this feedback all the time and I hated it because I was like, well, yeah, obviously you'll get a mentor. Obviously you'll chat to people and open up and whatever else. But I think when you get really stuck, being able to try to make hard decisions. Hard Thing About Hard Things is one of my favorite books, if you've read it. Ben Horowitz talks about the dot-com boom and having to crunch the team to work 60, 70, 80-hour weeks, only to then have to lay them off at the end, only to then go and acquire another business for 20, 30 mil to keep a giant customer, all in the same kind of like monthly period. No one teaches you how to make hard to decide what the best decision is in the worst situation. Now, our situations don't get too extreme or anything like that. But I think it's just important to have a view of where you're trying to go, stay consistent in what you're trying to do, bring your team on that journey. I'm really chalking up the shots today. Bring the team along for the ride in that piece. But you've also got to be okay to understand that when things go wrong or you need to react to those decisions and just readjust accordingly, it's not always clear trajectories. You see this in SaaS companies all the time as well. Some people have to, make a correction and then go again. But not taking action is worse, and then letting it simmer and everything else. I think I'll finish up this last point. I think I experienced a fair bit of stress in the last couple of months because we'd taken on so much, we'd grown so quickly, and I didn't want to do any course corrections, which caused me a lot of stress but kept everyone else happy. And I think once I made that course correction, the stress just shifts. It shifts from you to the team that you've then had to impact for whatever reason, and that's still really, really terrible. But then you've also got to think, why am I here? Like, what am I doing? And why did we do this thing in the first place? So I think just trying to have those real conversations with yourself and keep yourself accountable as best you can. I've got heaps of other lessons, but there are a few from scaling the last 12 months.
Being decisive is critical, and when the decisions are very hard, it must be very hard to be that decisive.
It's having good people around too, and Jordan has been an awesome person to kind of have as a business partner in that sense. And thankfully, we've known each other for a very long time. A lot of people will know that already, but just having that conversation with someone, it's either the start of my day or the start of his day is when we end up chatting because of the time zones. But being able to just check in and give that encouragement, saying, hey, like, don't worry about it. Like, you're killing it. Do you know the kind of work you're doing? Like, just push on. Don't let the dumb stuff bring you down. I find that's really key.
Yeah, I think you pulled a rabbit out of a hat bringing Jordan Vickery in. He has, he's very well known and very well respected in the UK market, as you know, Trent. So I think partnering him was great. Now, I feel that it's a great place to kind of wrap up this week's show. So hopefully this episode has provided you all with valuable insights that you can take forward. Please do check out the show notes for links to Digital Disruptors, SB Digital, Journey, and our wonderful sponsor, Free Agent, plus anything and any other tech product that Trent and I may have discussed along the way. If you want to ensure that you catch future episodes, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel and make sure you look out for the release every Thursday morning. We look forward to speaking to you next week.